Dr. Dyson, your book on Jay-Z is about to hit the streets. What can we expect from that book?
First of all, it's great to be here. Dr. Greg Carr, legend over here at Howard and throughout this country for knowing more black history than any person walking. And to this great bookstore and this great institution where I'll be preaching on the weekend of November 3rd. So I'm always honored to be here at Howard, and with these two great legendary figures and brilliant brothers, we're just going to have a conversation and open up for serious debate, dialogue, and discussion. My book on Jay-Z is a book divided into three big sections. First of all, looking at his hustling background, the stuff he did on the streets of Brooklyn, New York, in Marcy projects, what he learned from the streets, and then how he applied that to his subsequent life. So hustling in the broader sense of the word. And I generate a term called blight hustling for what went on in the post-industrial urban spaces of American society in the underground economy, and bright hustling, which is the application of high intelligence in the service of entrepreneurship and other avenues and other ways of manufacturing both capital, both literal capital and cultural capital as well. And I look at his influence on two big figures, LeBron James and Nipsey Hussle. The second chapter is on poetry, his poetic genius. And despite the fact that he has a great reputation for being a great rapper, a lot of people miss some of the intricacies of his artistic form. So I talk about metonymy, metaphor, simile, braggadocio, all that stuff, right? And that grows out of my conversation with Dr. James Peterson, who is here, my homeboy, PhD from University of Pennsylvania, Sears' brother, and engaged in conversation, and that grew out of that, our discussions over the last 10 years. The final chapter is on politics. A lot of people think, well, when Jay got involved with Obama, that was the first time he was kind of involved in politics. That was one of the first times in terms of above ground, politics, parliamentary politics, electoral politics, where he made a public endorsement. But from the very beginning, he's been involved in political arguments, and I've talked about that in the book, ending on the NFL debate that's going on now.
Appreciate you, brother.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Brother Rhoden, your book, $40 Billion Slaves, which you all, again, can get today. You talk about debates which hold very true today. What was your goal with that book, and do you feel you've reached it?
Yeah, again, thanks again, Ray, for being who you are. Etan, this is tremendous, man. From initial conversations to pulling this together, this is great. And obviously, Dr. Dyson, man, every time I'm in your presence, I'm awed, and I learn something new every day. The 40 Million Slaves basically was a call to arms. And it was written, I think I finished it 2006. And basically the idea of it, I thought at that time, I've been doing this for pay since 1973. I've been in this business writing since 1973. And, like you said, Sam Lacey was my mentor. And I learned so much from him just about who people said they were versus who they really were. And, he died at, I think he was like 100. And I think he may have written his last column maybe 2 weeks before he died. So he was always an inspiration to me and to dig into history. Anyway, the idea of 40 Million Slave was basically, I thought, at some point, we needed, and by saying we, I mean this group of African-American athletes, we needed to call a timeout and have a team meeting. There comes, there are times when things are going off the rails. In any great team, some leader will say, man, we need to call timeout, have a team meeting. Closed door, team meeting, and say, we're not leaving here until we figure this stuff out. And I thought that's what we needed that's what this group of African Americans needed as black folks. And I said, well, the fact that you were 69% of the league or 45, that percentage means nothing if it doesn't convert into power. And I realized too many guys had no idea. In the course of the book, one young lady asked me, as a middle school young lady, And after I finished, it was like Black History Month, of course. And she said, she stopped after I finished. She said, yo, Mr. Rhoden, that's all well and good, but who was the first white player to integrate the NBA? I think about that. She asked me, and I just let young people don't get with that. She said, well, who was the first white person to integrate the NBA? And it dawned on me that I was stunned, but it dawned on me that for a whole generation of folks, maybe even your age, the NBA was always 70% black. Right. The NFL was always 60% black. So I wanted to write this book as a call to arms, a history lesson, because if you don't know how you got to a certain place and the blood that it took to get to a certain place, then you have no idea of what it takes to maintain and to fight for it. So that was the basic.
Appreciate you.
Sorry about the comment.
No, please. You know. I didn't mention that for many years for the Baltimore Sun, Bill Rhoden wrote a jazz column, so you know how imprecise this little clash is in your ear. I'm sorry about that, brother. But we're coming right back around to you the next ones, the questions, because the next one is for Brother Etan. Brother Thomas, your book, We Matter, Athletes and Activism, which you also, of course, have available. You should get them all. And was recently named one of the top 10 activism books of all time by book authorities. What was your goal with the book? And do you feel that you've reached the goal?
Well, first of all, it's an honor for me to be here, and I've been reading their works and appreciating their works for a long time. And I wanted to do with We Matter. You know, I've played in the league for 11 years, so I had a lot of dealings with athletes that a lot of people don't know about. So a lot of times, athletes would be quiet about certain things, but I've talked to them in the locker room, so I know how they feel. And I wanted to just get them and to start speaking out a little bit more. So I interviewed a lot of different athletes, and I wanted to start a movement where using these athletes as their voice, because right now we're in a almost a throwback period where athletes are using their voices all across the board, and it is beautiful to see. And I wanted to capture it, and I wanted to start talking about it and show how effective it is, and encourage younger athletes to kind of do the same by seeing these athletes who they admire using their voices, like LeBron James, you know, like Dwayne Wade and Russell Westbrook and Kaepernick and Eric Reed. So I wanted to interview all of these brothers and talk to them as far as why they are using their voices now. You know, what caused the change? And a lot of it has been, you know, police brutality and everything that they've been seeing on social media in particular. And, you know, when athletes say something, people listen. They hear it. When I talk about people, I'm talking about more mainstream America. And so when you tell athletes how powerful their voices are, sometimes, you know, like the brother JC, who we'll get to in a while, they minimalize it. They don't understand how powerful their voices are. You know, and so with this book, and a lot of the feedback that I've been getting from the book as I've been traveling all over the country and different colleges and universities, is people have been amazed that athletes are going through the same things that regular black people are going through. And it takes that to, you know, hearing Dwayne Wade talk about being scared for his children when Trayvon Martin is murdered. And they're like, wait a minute, Dwayne Wade, why would he be scared for his children? We love his family. We love his wife. But they're like, oh, you know, he's a regular black person once he steps off of the court. And it takes an athlete saying that for a lot of mainstream America to make that connection. So that's what I'm doing a lot of, and encouraging younger athletes to really continue using their voice. And like I said, it's a beautiful time. You have little athletes, middle school, high school using their voice. So it's a beautiful time right now.
Appreciate you, brother. Right. And by the way, every week, what days Collision come on?
Thursdays.
Thursdays, yeah. I usually get up after I get out of class. What is that? 10, 11? 10 a.m., yeah. I know it's listed in springtime. The Collision on WPFW, you can listen to Brother Etan every week, WPFW.org, if you want to listen anywhere in the country, with he and his co-host Dave Zyron. So that's that voice we need. Oh, by the way, I see a lot of the folks, members of the various Howard University athletic teams are here this afternoon. So yeah, the memo got there. They came to see this. So the next round, now we get into the conversation after the opening statements with this question of athlete activism, and everyone will have 2 minutes to respond to the following quote. And I suppose I should ask Bill Rhoden to do it first, since the quote is from $40 Million Slaves. You said, and I quote, "Isolated and alienated from their native networks, and increasingly cloistered into new networks as they become corporatized entities, they, athletes, are excised from their communities as they fulfill their professional responsibilities and disconnected from the networks of people, in many cases predominantly African American, who once comprised their community. This leads to a general ignorance of the issues impacting a vast majority of African Americans across the country. With this recent explosion of athlete activism, what do each of you feel has changed since these words were published in 2006, if anything?
Yeah, first of all, I think that we have to redefine activism. I mean, what actually is activism? Because we use a lot. Is activism wearing a T-shirt? Is activism tweeting? I don't know, if that is what activism is. And I know we talk about people speaking out. I mean, all these kind of cliches. Somebody speaking out. And I think that sometimes our expectations for, quote unquote, athletes and celebrities was so low. The bar was so low that anything was considered like great. Just the fact that, because I think you had mentioned other, like being like the rest of us. And I think what's happening in this generation, well, guess what? Y'all are just like the rest of us. You could get blown away just like anybody else. So I think that, I still think that when you go to these places like University of Georgia, all Mississippi, all these places, I think there is a lot of isolation where you got this group of black athletes, but they're still kind of separate from the black community. I mean, on campus. In other words, it's us and it's them. Because it's still that stuff. As long as you run that ball and you don't say anything, you could be okay. You won't be like them. So I still think there's a large degree of isolation on these campuses. And it still was kind of distressing when you ask some of the professors on campus, the black professors on some of these great universities. I remember having a conversation with Dr. Franklin. I said, did you know? He said, I don't even know a lot of the athletes. In other words,
John Hope Franklin.
Dr. Franklin. I remember I had the same conversation with the late Barbara Jordan when she was at Texas. And I said, do you know any of these guys? And you would think that the coaches on these teams would seek out a lot of these professors and bring these black athletes to them. And I still find that that really is not the case, and I think it's really exacerbated in this one and done kind of era. So I still think social media has helped ease the isolation. People can connect, but I still think that there's a degree of isolation that exists on these campuses where you've got the black athletes over here and you've got the rest of the black student body over there.
Thanks, man. That's nice.
Dr. Carr mentioned Reverend Marcia Dyson, and she in the early 80s was working as a vice president for a PR firm and helped and in fact created Michael Jordan's McDonald's golf tournament. She also used to play cards with Michael Jordan, Lawrence Taylor, Gary Matthews. Who else?
They don't know that Gary Matthews.
Yeah,
baseball player.
Right.
Richard Dent,
the
Tennessee
football
State
player,
football
right?
Hall of Fame.
And she's right in it. You're talking about being cut off. That was one of the last few times, and Michael Jordan, of course, one of the last few times when these black athletes lived in black communities, attended black institutions, engaged in activities that circulated even among the black bourgeoisie and the elite, but they were still connected to them. Now, as Mr. Rhoden's comments make clear, there's been a marked division between them. When I taught at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, and all those big athletes, they were warning the athletes not to go to that radical black professor, right? Don't talk to him, because then I'm going to gin up the conversation, try to make them rethink where they are. Early on, I was talking about athletes getting paid. I know we're going to talk about that later. I was talking about them being compensated. Here they are, right across the road, Mike Krzyzewski, you're getting $7 million. Nike is giving you all kind of mad loot, and you're not getting paid a damn dime.
They had the racist president. They had all these racial issues that was going on. It was like higher learning. Y'all remember higher learning? All right, it was like higher learning there, right? Nothing was happening. And then the student body connected with the football team. So the football team said, listen, we're gonna threat to not play unless you do something about this president. And 2 days later, he was fired. Right? I go to the University of Oklahoma. All right, they had the one thing with the frat that was doing the blackface and singing the racist songs, and everybody was mad about it on campus, and nothing happened. Right? Then the football team came together, black and white, because when all the black players came, the white players had to come. Right? And then the coach had to come. Right? They had no choice. So they all came together and said, look, we are not going to tolerate this on our campus. And they threatened, just hinted that they might not play. And then they were brought up on charges. The frat was exposed. Everything like that happened. So when I bring up these cases, because I don't think that it's a lost generation. Do you know what I mean? I'm seeing a woke generation now. Now, if we're comparing it to the time of the 60s, I don't know if you can make that comparison, but even when you're talking about what activism is, I had a chance to interview family members of the victims of police brutality, and one of the people who I interviewed was DeVar Fulton, who was Trayvon Martin's brother. So he told me, he said, if it wasn't for athletes, nobody would know my brother's name. And I said, what do you mean by that? That's kind of strong. And he said, well, people don't understand that when Trayvon Martin was first killed, we were trying to get the story out for a while, and they just said, listen, that's another black man killed, it's not really newsworthy. And I was like, that's what they told you? And he was like, yeah. He's like, but then LeBron James wore a hoodie, then Dwayne Wade wore the hoodie, then the whole team, and then you had all these athletes talking about, Trayvon Martin and relating it to themselves. And then everybody started to pay attention. So that's just the power of activism. Yeah, it might be just a hoodie or just a picture or I Can't Breathe shirt, but it means a lot. And that's the power that activism has, right?
So we're going to do a round of responses for that. I mean, I had Rhoden, Dyson, Thomas, but Doc, if you want to go first, if that's all right with you, and then Bill, and then come back over.
Right. So I don't think we were trying to make a qualitative comparison between earlier generations and later ones. At least I wasn't. But the isolation is a consequence of social relations and the politicization of the academy to such a degree that the hyper-concentration on these enclaves of athletes makes them even more precious and therefore seen as extensions of the university's branding, and they don't want those athletes. If you can name the teams, you're proving our point. It's an exception. The masses of black athletes are not being afforded that opportunity to engage in such activity. When you talk about Missouri and Oklahoma, a lot more institutions, a lot more places. So I agree, though, with Mr. Thomas's larger point, because I don't want to demonize younger people as if they're somehow cut off from a tradition. People respond by the means they have available to them. So I absolutely agree with that. But at the same time, I think that these social forces and political forces have to be acknowledged in a very serious way. And when it comes to the kind of political consciousness, I would also trouble that narrative a bit. Before LeBron James, it was Al Sharpton, right? When they got Al Sharpton to come down there and LeBron tweeted out that hoodie, that was extremely important. But it is true that the younger generation, through social media, began to respond to the situation that was there. LeBron James picked up on that, amplified that, and the reason I say that because you're an athlete and you're representing them brilliantly. I got to represent for the black preachers and the people out here as well, and the activists who are doing serious things who are also being maligned as if they're not doing anything in their generation. So I think those two things came together. Social media allowed the proliferation. So when Mr. Rhoden talked about, is it the same? No, it's not the same in terms of this generation, but I tell you what, if Martin Luther King Jr. had Twitter and Instagram, right, at his disposal, where 250,000 people came together a million later for Minister Farrakhan, can you imagine the ripples and tides that would be affected by virtue of having access to articulate ideas on social media that could amplify their message?
Yeah, something about, go ahead.
Yeah, and I think that what we're talking about, I know I'm not, I'm not used to debating because I don't really debate shit. So this is refreshing. This is what it is.
You just said,
but this is fun.
Thanks, Lord. Thank you, Lord.
But I agree. I believe in evolution. In other words, just like we tell our kids, what our ancestors went through in 1928 wasn't what they went through in 1938
right.
or 43. What the reality of 2019 is it wasn't even 10 years ago. So it's an evolution of stuff. So where I am now is that we talk about redefine activism, and let's stay in this lane. I'm like that. We all got to define a lane. Okay? I think sometimes, if you look at so for an athlete, for example, what I consider activism now, for a guy like Zion, we're in the one and done era. Okay, so Zion, listen, you're only going to be on campus for 8 months. All right? 5 universities were willing to sell their mothers to get you to come. You only know that you're going to be there Friday. Like 5 guys like this. So activism is, you know what? I tell you what, I'm only going to be at Duke for 5 months. However, there's a couple young people in my community who are worthy to go to Duke, can't afford to go to Duke. You are going to give them my scholarship. You're going to give them my 4-year scholarship because long after I'm gone, they're going to graduate from Duke. If you want me to come to your campus, that's how I'm getting to your campus. And trust me, Duke, Kentucky, they'll make that happen. To me, that's activism, ACT. That's activism. That's somebody, a young person who was being recruited very highly, said, you know what, I'm out of here, but this is what you're going to do for my community. And if you're not doing it for my community, they ain't coming. And trust me, they will come. So I think where we are now, and when you walked out and talk professional guys, professional athletes, when you, instead of going out to the parking lot, why don't you go through your marketing department of the San Diego Chargers? Go through, and you'll be stunned that you will not see any black folks. Activism is saying, you know what, we need some black folks in this marketing department, or this advertising department, or this. We need some black folks, not on the field, but throughout the organization. So that's to me the new activism. You know, the T-shirts are fine, all that, but it's the use of your power to transform.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
I think that when you're dealing with activism, and you're dealing with the discussion of activism, you have to put it into the bigger context of everybody in the 60s wasn't like Bill Russell and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I know they like to tell the story that that's how it was,
Right.
but that's not how it was. Just like everybody in the 60s didn't march with Dr. King.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
You know, it's
Most did. Most did.
there was people who you can name. Like you talked about the people that I can name. I named the example of Oklahoma University, named the example of Missouri. But when we talk about activism in the 60s, we still name a certain group of people all the time. And the reason why is because everybody wasn't like that group of people. There were a lot of other people that was like OJ.
Right.
That said, and I interviewed Dr. Harry Reid. And Dr. Harry Reid told me how they wanted to get, I was just on USC's campus with the Rainbow Push Coalition. Beautiful campus, right? So I'm asking a little bit more about everything that was going on there because I'm on the campus. And, and Dr. Harry Edwards was telling me how, when they wanted to get all the athletes together back in the 60s, 68, and boycott the Olympics. Kareem decided not to go. That's when John Carlos and Tommy Smith did the Black Power Fist. Everybody else did something. They went to OJ and said, listen, you're right here. All this stuff is going on all around. Will you please stand with us? And OJ said, I'm not black, I'm OJ. Right? So there was a lot of other people who had that same type of mentality.
Okay.
And so what I'm saying is that, while you have certain people that may not speak out as much as right now, that may not use their power the way that they could right now, you had the same thing in the 60s.
Absolutely.
But what I'm saying is that let's celebrate the people who are right now to where when they do step out, they're not by themselves.
Right.
When Kaepernick took a knee for a while, he was by himself.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that's including other NFL players and other media who wanted to kind of wait, not necessarily black media, you know what I mean? Because a lot of black people did come out. And Javaris Fulton said, Reverend Sharpton and Roland Martin were the only 2 people that covered it, right? Mainstream America didn't touch it when Trayvon Martin first was killed, right? So a lot of times we need to hold different black journalists accountable as well.
Right.
Because black journalists know that if they do a certain tap dance, they'll get kind of. I want to keep going, but
Sorry, no, you good. I'm reading your rules, brother. So I got the script. Can we have DVA? You want to say something right? And then we're gonna read this quote and go to the next.
Yeah, 68. I mean, I think the issue, and again, I'm not into contrasting generations. Like the 60s was no. I mean, it's all an evolution. You didn't have the critical mass in 1968 that you had 2019. In other words, in 1968, you still having quotas. They're still saying brothers couldn't play middle linebacker and brothers couldn't play quarterback. But now in 1968, you got locker rooms that are like 70% black. We are in an unprecedented time, and unprecedented time is not going to last forever. By the way, they're not going to let it continue like this. And so my issue is, there's a sense of urgency now that we have to use this critical mass while we still got the critical mass. Because if you think these white folks are going to allow this, they're probably thinking these people are nuts. They can't get this stuff together. You mean all we need to do is give the Players Coalition, all we need to do is like scrape up everybody, come out there with wallet with own it with $2 million, and because we want these guys to stop protesting, so here's X million dollars to get them to stop protesting. That's all it is. It's that simple. So I guess all I'm saying is not necessarily a debate, but an evolution that while we've got this critical mass of athletes, and no other there's not at Georgetown, black professors don't have that kind of power. George, certainly in my profession, journal, we don't have that kind of critical mass. In your profession, how do we use it? That's what I'm saying. How do we use it where we are right now to evolve and to get to the next level? That's all I'm saying.
Listen to what he said. He fired a white agent.
That's right.
After he let him teach Rich Paul the game.
Right.
He taught Rich Paul the game, and then LeBron did what all white folk often do for us.
No question.
We train their people, and then they fire us.
Yes.
LeBron said, "Did you train them everything you know?" Yeah. See ya, thank you, appreciate you. And now this guy has become a central figure in agency. That's what LeBron does. And he learned a lot of that from his relationship to Jay-Z. I know we'll get into that.
Appreciate it. In fact, that's next after the time. Your response, then we're going to go to Jay-Z.
Well, I'd definitely like to hear about the relationship to Jay-Z. That's not quite what I saw from LeBron, but I think from a business standpoint, I think he did learn definitely a lot as far as being able to diversify your portfolio. You know what I mean? But as far as it being all about the money, I think that he rejected that part from Jay-Z and created his own lane. And that's what kind of makes LeBron a little bit special right now, because it's not all about the money with him. I mean, he could easily take the safe route and say, okay, I'm going to be PC, I'm going to be right here, you know, can't we all just get along, you know, buy these shoes, and the argument is that he would have more fans, right? That he would have more endorsements, that he would have more things available to him, but he's not doing that route at all. I mean, even if you saw how upset they were when they wore the I Can't Breathe shirts, how upset they all over the place, it's like they erupted. But then I interviewed Eric Garner's daughter, Emerald, and she told me what it meant to her seeing them wear the I Can't Breathe shirts. Because that's right after she's seen the image of her father being choked to death on TV over and over again, right? So she said, wow, I cannot believe that LeBron James is wearing this I Can't Breathe shirt in support of my father. She said, I saw the Lakers, even Kobe was wearing I Can't Breathe shirt, and Kobe was not saying much about anything.
Brother, could you say something about the links and the blowback they got in?
And now when you talk, and I got to interview Swin Cash and Tamika Catchings, and what they did was something that has never been seen before at all. As an entire league, the entire WNBA as a whole, even the white ladies. You know what I mean? Like the foreign women who ain't even from here. They don't even know what's going on. You know what I mean? They play here and then they go back overseas. They all were standing together like as a sisterhood. And they was like, listen, it was right after the back-to-back murders of Philando Castile and Alton Sterling. They said, no, this is not right. They said, listen, we're going to have a media blackout. So after each game, we're going to have 2 questions. Y'all get 2. We're going to say about the game, then we ain't talking about nothing else that doesn't directly deal with this issue that's going on with the police murdering unarmed black people. And they did it as an entire league. So I was like amazed, because I was like, how did y'all get everybody to do it? You know what I mean? Because remember, that was right when Kaepernick took a knee and he was out there by himself. And they said, Swin Cash, when I interviewed her, she said, well, first of all, women do it differently. Yes. And I was like, well, what do you mean? She was like, well, explain that to me. She was like, because we didn't have to know the details. We saw our sister who was hurting, and that's why you had other people who are not even from here see their sister hurting. What are you hurting about? Oh, this is what you're hurting about? Well, I'm with you. And she said, and that was it. She said, it didn't take a whole lot of convincing. They said we had one meeting over the phone, and everybody, and we said, this is what we're going to do. And everybody said, yep, I'm down. And so now the WNBA doesn't make what NBA players make, right? So the commissioner said, so the commissioner said, if you do this again, we're going to fine you. Right? So the older players say, hey, listen, we're going to still do this. And the younger players, they were like, we can't really afford to be fined. They're like, look, we'll pay your fine. Don't worry about that. We're all doing it together. And then they kept doing it all together. And then when everybody did it together, they can't fine everybody. Right. They can't suspend everybody. Right. And then they had nobody to play the game. Right? So then they rescinded their fine. Then they backtracked their words. And they said, we're proud of our women for taking it. Then it was a completely different. Now, I've never seen an entire league do that. And I think that, that's one thing I really wanted to highlight in the book, because I don't think it got enough praise and enough, everything like that. I thought it was absolutely beautiful. But that's activism, though. That's the activism.
Quick 30 seconds, we're going to go to Jay-Z. I know y'all waiting on it. Among others, and you said, bottom line, this doesn't look like chess versus checkers. This looks like Connect 4. You stacking your chips on top of the movement and connecting with the NFL for a straight line across of capitalism plus concerts plus Rockaware apparel. You won the game, but it definitely doesn't equal social justice. End quote. Dr. Dyson, continuing the rhythm, can you elaborate on why exactly you say this isn't selling out, but rather just how capitalism works? And then it'll be followed, Brother Thomas.
Well, no, he made the major argument. I want to hear what he got to say.
Dr. Dyson?
You want me to? All right, I'll respond to that. So, what's interesting, that's very powerful, very interesting. I think that at the end of the day, though, when I ask for the empirical proof of that, the verification, it can't be the accumulation of capital. Colin Kaepernick has a contract with Nike. Mm-hmm. Last time I checked, they ain't socialists. Right. Last time I checked, he's got apparel. Right. He's got apparel. And look, you're not going to fight. If you were looking for me to say something negative against Colin Kaepernick, you got the wrong guy. Because I believe what he's doing is extraordinary. But please don't tell yourself that Colin Kaepernick is not involved in capitalism. The reproduction of goods and services, the distribution of commodities that have been generated for the purposes of both raising consciousness by capitalizing that consciousness and articulating his ideals as a centerpiece of his own social activism. I ain't mad at that. But to make the distinction between capitalist versus non-capitalist misses the degree to which a contract with Nike, a contract before that with the football team where he made, what, was it $19-20 million with the 49ers before he bravely gave $1 million of that? The reason I can't help the poor if I'm one of them, so I got rich and gave back, that's the win-win, right? So my point is that without the wherewithal to be able to donate the funds that he accumulated, Colin Kaepernick would not be in a position to be a social justice activist. I don't see the automatic dismissal of Jay-Z for Rockaware apparel, for Jay-Z engaging in a whole range of things. The stuff that you mentioned about what Colin has done, I could counteract you and tell you the stuff that Jay-Z has been doing from the very beginning, very subtly, very behind the scenes, from bailing out Black Lives Matter protesters to generating a social justice reform movement, to talking about generating ideas of interest to those who are vulnerable, to making sure that those who are least represented have a voice piece. So my point is that I agree with your analysis about what Colin Kaepernick is doing. I don't see a qualitative distinction between that and what Jay-Z is doing. If you're talking about Jay-Z's deal that was cut with the NFL, we know he ain't making that much money off of it, right? It wasn't for money. See, you can't have it both ways. Either he's going to accumulate a whole great deal of capital, being named a billionaire at the same time this comes out. He already got the dough, right? In conversations with them, I know specifically that what he wanted to do was to leverage the cultural capital of African-American artists who have been marginalized to a certain degree, especially within these Super Bowl things, right? Because he is an entertainer. That's what he does. It's like Colin Kaepernick plays football. Jay-Z is an entertainer.
Only difference, Doc, is that Colin Kaepernick is not a football player because the NFL is afraid of him in a way they're not afraid of Jay-Z.
I understand, but what I'm saying his function and role, his vocation
but he's not,
for the last 10 years.
He is not being able to ply his trade anymore.
Wait a minute. But I agree with that. But that ain't
Would you agree with them?
But wait a minute.
The NFL is unplugging it. The NFL is unplugging.
I agree with that.
Well,
but what's that do with marketing?
Game over.
I'm agreeing.
It's game over. But they're not unplugging Jay-Z. We feel comfortable with Jay-Z. We don't feel comfortable.
Is Eric Reed still playing?
Yes.
Wait a minute, hold on. Is Eric Reed still playing? Is Kenny Steele still playing?
Yep.
Are 70%, 69% of the NFL is black ball players? Wait a minute. Wait, before we get to Jay-Z, let's get to the Negroes who play the game. Before we get to the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, let's talk about the Negroes in Montgomery who are riding the bus with Martin Luther King Jr. and Rosa Parks. My point is this: if you're going to make that argument about Jay-Z and the way in which it is either exculpatory of or indicting of Jay-Z because he's involved in a financial and fiduciary relationship with the NFL, then every black ball player who continues to play in the aftermath of Colin Kaepernick's kneeling is therefore complicit in that system.
No, it's not, because you're talking about.
We'll let you respond and then anytime you jump in.
You're talking about two different things. Nobody is complaining about this business deal.
Oh, nobody's complaining about the business deal. Okay,
No,
I thought I heard
what we're complaining about is that The business is fine. He says it is. What's the, you know, when he says, I'm not a businessman, I'm a businessman. Great.
Let me have no more business then.
Great. So he said, but when you now lapsed into the territory of now this is social justice, that's bullshit.
Yes.
That has nothing to do, and that's what I'm saying.
Criminal justice reform alliance is bullshit?
When he says this is a business deal, that's great. But when he
An
allows
op-ed in the New York Times?
when he
Time
allows
magazine?
when
With
he
cash
allows
bills for women who are in jail?
allows Goodell to now put himself up that this is also about social justice, bullshit. Because you got a man who's not playing. It can be different. It could be different if Jay-Z said, you know what, as a conditions deal, Kaepernick at least has to get a tryout.
Right.
He has to at least get a tryout. To not do that, that's what I'm saying. So it's one thing to make a deal, but it's another thing to come and be a hoe. You know, I'm saying.
Wait a minute, you want me to chance, Doc? I gotta make sure. Go ahead. All right, y'all. I'm mindful of the clock. About 20 minutes after. It's been going a strong hour. Go ahead, Bob.
So going back to the issue with the actual deal. The issue wasn't the fact that he's doing business. It's what price did you have to pay for that business deal for you to be able to get the seat at that table. Going back to where Jay-Z originally was, where he made the song 8, I can't say what it is, but he said, you know, we're in stadiums too, you know what I mean, the whole right. So he had a specific position that he kept, and it was, you know, against the NFL. Anybody that performs for the Super Bowl is going against the movement. I'm going to wear a Kaepernick jersey. I'm going to challenge the NFL, and he's going to do all of these things specifically, right? So the difference between Jay-Z having to deal with the NFL and Kaepernick having to deal with Nike is Nike was doing. Kaepernick had he took a knee.
And he already had the deal.
Well, listen, he took a knee, right? He said specifically what this is about is police brutality, the political system, and systemic racism. Okay? So then he has to deal with Nike. His message didn't change.
That's right.
It's still police brutality, systemic racism, and the political process.
Yeah.
Jay-Z now completely shifted.
Right.
Now he has a new message. Now his message is, we're past kneeling. Now his message is, you don't worry about Kaepernick anymore. Now he's sitting next to Roger Goodell, smiling for the cameras, you know what I mean, all big, all teeth showing and everything like that, and saying that we are here together. Now, the NFL is using Jay-Z because they know how we feel about Jay-Z, rightfully so, because he has done a lot, which was the reasons why you wrote a book about him. You ain't writing a book about Joe Blow the rapper, you're writing a book about Jay-Z. So the reason why they reach out to him is because the power that he has. Now, we've seen this before.
Yes, we have.
We've seen this with the Brooklyn Nets. Now, if you remember what happened with the Brooklyn Nets, they were going in there and building a stadium in Brooklyn, okay? And they put Jay-Z up, and he had the billboard in Times Square. Like, this is my team, and this is going to be for us, right? And he sold it to the people to make the transition go smoother, for them to give away their apartments, for them to gentrify the whole neighborhood, because he said he showed himself as an owner, this is my team. Right? Come to find out, he owned 0.1%. Okay? So he wasn't really being honest about what type of an owner, and they weren't being honest as well. But he allowed them to use him in order to what translated to a good deal for him. He had the 40/40 club in there, he had concerts in there, everything like that. Now, you know what I mean? The whole place is gentrified, and now he don't even own it no more. He sold it, and now he's gone. Right? So now we see this now with the NFL, and it has to be like, wait a minute, we've seen this before, Jay-Z. So now you telling us the NFL is okay. Now you're telling us that they are involved in activism, and they're sitting here like Jay-Z is co-signing for us, and that's what has the antennas go up like, wait a minute. That's why everybody is questioning Jay-Z's motives.
Yes.
We're going to keep going. We got halfway through. Don't worry. All right, let's deal with this notion. And again, this is just in the flow of the conversation. You map this out.
Am I going to be able to respond to that?
Yeah, in fact. Let's deal with this notion of being past kneeling and that it's time for actionable items, which Jay-Z infamously proclaimed during his press conference with Roger Goodell, Commissioner of the NFL. I guess everybody knows that. Do we feel we are past kneeling? Brother Rhoden and Brother Dyson, Brother Thomas.
I want to see them.
Okay.
No, I mean, but that's what I'm saying, though. It's ridiculous. you know, it's ridiculous for him to say something like that. That's all I'm saying. Why do you say shit like that? You know, I mean, it's ridiculous. You got, you know, you talk about Eric Reed. Why is he playing? Well, number one, Eric Reed is like a 24, 25-year-old, hardy, hefty, you know, supple-bodied black man who could help them. And he's, by the way, he's going to the care, you know. But while Kaepernick is not getting the job, while they're taking away his livelihood, not even giving the man a tryout, blatantly flogging him, blatantly. And then you go on national TV with the commissioner, who's got 32 other owners who are doing that, saying that we're past kneeling. Again, you know, I mean, I can't really add too much. To me, it's you know, I call it home and it's prostitute. Why are you doing that? Like you said, it's not that much money. Like you just said, it's not that much money. So that almost makes it even worse. So I don't even know what else.
That's all right. We're going next. No, Dyson, please go ahead, bro.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to engage in that hominem, though interesting and intriguing, is a bit dismissive. Misses the integrity of whatever you thought he possessed beforehand, right? If you want to make a sharp distinction between before and after, and to reduce him to being a whole because he made a decision that was consistent with the entire arc and trajectory of his career, which, by the way, is not simply about making money. Again, to go back to what Brother Thomas said in making a distinction between LeBron and Jay is hardly sustainable. I see no empirical evidence for it. I see no productive differences that have been generated as to substantiate the claim that LeBron has done something beyond the money and Jay-Z hasn't. They both have made extraordinary, you said that, they both have made extraordinary amounts of capital and cash, investments beyond belief, extraordinary businessmen, and LeBron says he wants to be the first, I think, black billionaire in basketball. So they both have the same goals in that sense, right? So to make that distinction is, I think, you know, very much unsubstantiated. So there is no question that Colin Kaepernick deserves a job. There is no question that Colin Kaepernick should be playing. There is no question that the NFL, by settling with him, at least implicitly, suggested that there was collusion going on, right? There was no official admission of collusion, but we know darn well the reason they settled is for the simple fact that collusion was happening. So everything you said about these owners and what they're doing to Colin Kaepernick is absolutely right. In speaking, and I just spoke to both Colin and Jay on Saturday, told them I was coming here, and they said hello and what's up. What's interesting, and I talked to Ness as well, what's interesting is that when we speak about Jay-Z versus Colin Kaepernick, or Jay-Z versus the rest of the ball players, the reason I brought Eric Reed in, let's talk about who's a sellout and who's not, who's hoeing and who's not. So when the Players Coalition that I heard you be a bit critical of,
Very critical,
right?
yes.
When the Players Coalition headed by Malcolm Jenkins of the Philadelphia 76ers, Anquan Bolden, who's no longer in the league, Benjamin Watson, and others, right, sat down, negotiated with the owners, took $89 million, and have since funneled that money into what organizations? Organizations like Advancement Project, which deals with social justice movements in Black America, the relationship between law enforcement and black communities, and a whole host of not just charities, right? Martin Luther King Jr. said charity support substitute for justice, but justice-oriented organizations. Eric Reed called them neo-colonial, called them a sellout, right? Jay-Z aside. So what raises the hackles and then raises suspicion is that if we play Starsky and Hutch, if we're Malcolm and Martin, if we believe that there's an inside-outside game, and we believe that conscientious athletes like Malcolm Jenkins, who take the money so that they can leverage it for the purposes of, inspired by Colin Kaepernick, by the way, inspired by Colin Kaepernick, to take that money to fund the interests of African-American players, people, why is it that they would automatically be called sellout, hoeing, neo-colonial stooges of a dominant white supremacist culture?
You know why? I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. Because this group of players, led by Colin Kaepernick, had these fuckers, owners, up against the wall, getting ready to be checkmate. You guys are making us lose money. You guys are turning people against us. Could you please stop it? What's it going to take for you to stop it? It's going to take $89 million. I don't care if you take the $89 million and continue to protest, when they say, Dr. Dyson, I'm going to give you this now, could you please stop it? And you take the money, said, you know what, I'm going to stop it. To me, they won. The West,
Malcolm
they
Jenkins
won.
didn't stop protesting, though. He still
They
had
did.
his card. Wait a minute. He still held
They
the cards
stopped
up.
kneeling, they stopped,
Wait a
they
minute.
stopped.
He never kneeled, number one. He raised his fist, number one.
And he
Number
stopped
two,
raising his fist.
But he
stopped.
also, wait a minute, he also held up cards to explain to a news media that was obsessed with one particular variety of resistance. All I'm saying to you, I agree, except with the name calling, I agree with the reality that there are multiple ways to talk about this injustice that prevails. What I disagree with you is that if it's not your Bill Rhoden way, if it's not one particular way, if it's not the specific formation that you imagine, then all of a sudden that becomes illegitimate and they become holes. I'm telling you, if Malcolm Jenkins, who was on that field, not you,
I didn't
or
call
not I,
Malcolm Jenkins out.
but now Malcolm Jenkins, right? What is he? Okay. So what is he? A side chick? I mean, so what I'm saying to you, no.
Your word.
No. I'm saying to you, I'm saying the engaging.
I'm just saying, don't hurt me.
No. I'm saying
We're
to
on the
you.
plantation, and I'm escaping. I don't care. Just don't go to the man. Tell him
First
I'm
of
getting
all-
ready to escape.
No, hold on. First of all, here's what you haven't done. Here's
All
what
right,
you haven't
and
done.
then we're going to
Let me say this.
it's
Here's what
6:30.
you've
I want to
done.
make sure
It's
we got
interesting,
time.
and I know that Brother Thomas talked about. I would be interested in hearing your critical analysis of critical engagement with Colin Kaepernick, because what Jay-Z, in talking to him, I know what he meant. We can say poorly formulated in terms of getting past. His point was we can kneel, because look at the second tape that came out. They asked him, should there be protests? He said, absolutely. Should there be kneeling? Absolutely. Should people continue? So if you think he contradicted his first statement, the point is he was trying to expand upon the belief that people should engage in protests, that we need serious protests in the NFL, but that's not the only thing we need. We need protests, we need organization. Let me give you this one example and I'll be quiet. So when Jesse Jackson was, when Texaco, corporation that some of you might remember, released a tape where they were talking about black people who were trying to sue them. 1,400 members of Texaco were suing them for injustice, called them niggas, right? So the tape got out. It became a real problem. Jesse Jackson and others were protesting outside, right? Protesting condition, protesting what was going on. Then when they found out that it was an untenable situation, they invited Jesse Jackson in to negotiate for what a settlement would be for those 1,400 people who were employees of Texaco to make an argument. So Jesse Jackson, out from protest, then got at the table to negotiate, and then a settlement was given to those 1,400 employees. Now, we could argue from pure politics that, oh, that's a sellout move, that Jesse Jackson was out protesting one day, the next day he's at the table negotiating, the next day he's out getting a settlement. Malcolm Jenkins understood that these white owners had options that they were trying to take. Yes, was part of it is embarrassment? Absolutely right. What you have not proved is when you said that Colin Kaepernick had those owners against their backs against the wall. No, they didn't. Because in order for that to occur, they would have had to have had near universal buy-in from the 70% of black players and others who were on that field. There was nothing approaching that.
We'll never know.
So
We'll never know. We'll never know. We'll never know.
How do we not know? They didn't do it.
Let me do
They didn't do it.
Let me do this. Let me work in number 6 each time because it's your quote.
Let me respond.
Oh yeah, please. And then we'll just continue.
Dr. Dyson brilliantly just used a great example of Reverend Jesse Jackson and how he used a situation where something wrong was happening. He brought it to the company, and then they negotiated terms. What the problem is, and we've had a history of people doing that. We've had, we've had Reverend Sharpton do that. You know what I mean? We've had people do that with companies. Making that correlation to Jay-Z and the NFL is problematic, and for this reason. When Jay-Z negotiated the terms, what terms are beneficial to police brutality? That's the problem right now. So the problem that when he negotiated terms after he was there with the press conference with Roger Goodell, and the first thing that came out, he said, "Listen, do you know the issue? Do you know the issue?" Remember, sarcastic went around. Do you know the issue? Do you know the issue? We know what the issue is. So now it's time for actionable items. So you're the one that made the statement that said you're going to bring about actionable items because we passed kneeling and we passed Kaepernick. So let's wait and see what the actionable items are, right? So the first actionable item that they came out with was the organization where they were cutting the young brothers' locks and saying that they were going to better themselves.
Yes.
Now, that for me was offensive. Number one, I love my locks. My son, who you saw, love his locks. I'm looking at you beautiful Howard students right now, and I'm seeing your beautiful locks. And you were smart, you're intelligent, you don't need anybody to cut your locks to have you have a better you or whatever that is that they were trying to do. So that to me and the entire black community should have been offensive right there, number one. And it reminds me of the Malcolm X quote where he says, "Who taught you to hate yourself? Who taught you to hate how you look? You know, how hate your nose, hate the color of your skin so much that you bleach to look like the white man." That's what that told me. Even if it was the young man's idea, for Jay-Z to partner with any organization that would perpetuate that is an insult, and that's not an actionable item. So the next one that came out was that he was donating $500,000 to charities in Chicago. Again, that's great. This is not a charities issue. Again, or you know what you said about brilliantly, like you said about social activists to social just right, and it's the same different thing. This is not a charity issue. This is a police brutality issue. So what you come up with next is supposed to directly impact police brutality. I was looking for something like we're going to go to all over the country, and NFL players are going to be with police departments and try to change the laws that are in place in the particular police department and use our power to that's what I was looking for. Not that we're going to donate money to a charity and everything is going to be okay. That's not what Kaepernick was kneeling for. So if you're going to say that we're past Kaepernick and we're past kneeling, you have to come up with something better than that.
Right. Let me briefly respond.
Real quickly, because I want to make sure you got time to get these books and get them signed.
Right. But briefly on that, absolutely right on the cutting of the locks and so on and so forth. In terms of vetting that group in a very problematic fashion, though the young man claimed, he said, look, he put on this is an individual choice. I had associated them in my own mind with some criminal activity in the past I want to change. So, but absolutely right. No question about that. Number two, in terms of the negotiation of terms, let's be clear. Jay-Z was not negotiating terms in behalf of aggrieved players, right? There's no question about that. Colin Kaepernick has brilliantly done so. But also who had done that, again, back to the Players Coalition, the very thing you're talking about, we're going to partner with local organizations to make a change. The Players Coalition has challenged stand your ground laws in about 20 different states. The Players Coalition has not only given money, but sought to undergird justice organizations in many of these states. So to lump them in as so-called sellouts because they chose to take the $89 million is missing the point. If you demand that there be some resources put to the ideals that are being articulated and then they use those funds to do the very thing we're talking about, we're trying to talk about apples and oranges. And then finally, in terms of Jay-Z, there is no question in my mind that the very issues you're speaking about, he's talked about and been concerned about police brutality, which is why he started Reform Alliance, which is why he's trying to talk about over-incarceration, which is why he's doing actual work, actionable items in regard to bail, cash bail that has devastated people, which is why he made 2 documentaries, one on Trayvon Martin and one on Khalif Browder that addresses these issues. So my point is simply this: even if you disagreed with what you thought the consequences are. First of all, we ain't got enough time to see what it is. Those are 2 organizations. There are many more organizations to come to be given money, number one. But number two, even if you disagree with what he's done now, and to your credit, in your piece, you said, I don't want to cancel Jay-Z. But I'm afraid so many other people, because they disagree with a particular action of an individual whose entire life for the last 20 years has pointed to some progressive or at least some interesting and emancipatory practices, to reduce them now to what you perceive to be their mistake is to miss out on the concrete reality that all of us may make a mistake, but we still are oriented in the same direction. And finally, I say this. To me, Colin Kaepernick is an American hero, continues to be the embodiment of ideals, norms, and practices that need to be done. But we need to also deal with the fact that Colin Kaepernick is one figure. There's a multitude of realities and figures and icons who are out there that need to be tapped into in order to make an argument on behalf of social justice. He's a critical figure. He's not an exclusive figure. And I think that's an important distinction to be made.
If you want me to, and thank you, Brother Jackson. If let's turn
real
quickly.
Let me just
jump in. Yeah, go ahead, and then you next anyway on this.
The problem with that of you're giving Jay-Z a little bit too much credit of something that we haven't seen based on this one thing. Now, yes, he has a great past. He has a great past of everything that he's done. right? But from this point, from when he made the deal with the NFL and the actionable items that he said that he was going to have, and that was going to be directly, related to what Kaepernick was taking the knee for, and the reason why we need to move past Kaepernick, what he brought after that had nothing to do with police
But wait a
brutality.
minute, it's been 2 months.
But all right,
It's been 2
But
months.
if you're going to make a statement that big to say that we're ready to move past Kaepernick, the first thing you have to come out with has to be directly dealing with the reason why we have to move
Wait a
past
minute. Well, first of all,
he hasn't done that.
but it's not even
Wait. But it's like right now we're in election season. We're getting up for election season. It's like when a politician comes up there and says, "Look, never mind my past. Never mind when I was a DA back in California. Never mind when everything that I did back there. I want you to pay attention to what I'm going to do in the future." Right?
That's HU, you know.
So don't tell me what you have. Don't tell me to not look behind the curtain. You tell me.
But you're engaging in misdirection. It's the exact opposite with Jay-Z.
But no.
He's had 20 years of serious and significant work, and now that you're reducing because of one perceived
You
mistake.
got to give me specifics. You can't tell me. Trust me. It's all going to work out.
Let's turn this.
How else?
He hasn't had time.
How else am I going to get on board with you if I don't have specifics?
You
Come
ain't
on, now, let's turn this just slightly to continue this in this vein, but to direct it a little bit towards, because most of the questions that you laid out, that have been laid out, have kind of been covered. But this is another element. The video clip of Jay-Z speaking at the Reform panel, Etan, that you mentioned in your open letter. You quoted Jay-Z when he shocked the world by saying that, quote, "Growing up in a single-parent house causes people to have an adverse feeling towards authority, which causes them to say F you to the police, which then causes people to lose their lives." In your open letter, Jay-Z, you interviewed Eric Garner Jr., who responded to Jay-Z's quote by saying, quote, "I grew up loving Jay-Z like everyone else my age. I have nothing but respect for him. But what he said was hurtful. It sounded like he was making excuses for the police. My father wasn't rude. He didn't say F you. He said, I can't breathe 11 times." Mr. Thomas, do you think Jay-Z meant this the way it came out? Are we holding him to too high a standard? Again, in the same vein, but trying to think about Cosby and these previous, what ultimately, do you think that was a misspeak rather, or?
So this is my problem with that, because that is brought up a lot, that maybe Jay-Z didn't quite articulate his point the way that he had planned for it. I think Dr. Dyson just said it today, and it's kind of letting him off the hook. Jay-Z is a lyricist. Jay-Z is one of the best rappers ever. Best rapper alive. He's on a Mount Rushmore of rappers ever. He know how to speak, and he a grown man. All right? So we can't give him that he don't speak well. You know what I mean? I can't. No. I'm not saying you said it, but you said maybe he didn't articulate. No, he cannot articulate the way that you can. But that's why he has to plan what he's saying before he opens his mouth. He can't just freestyle it like he likes to brag that he always does when he goes in the booth. When you're talking about something like this, you have to be able to plan what you're going to say, and you have to be able to articulate it. Or else right now, I think that he owes every family member and every victim an apology, including the Garners, for what he said, because it should have been hurtful. Because he's actually letting the police off the hook. He's sitting there, and I watched the whole. I didn't want to make a rush to judgment without seeing the whole thing. So I watched the whole panel. You know what I mean? And I saw McMill talk about how much it changed his life and what they wanted to do with reform, and they had Robert Kraft there, and that was kind of a little bit, but still, I was like, all right, and they talked about what they wanted to do and everything, and it sounded great. Everybody sounded good until Jay-Z started talking. So once Jay-Z opened his mouth and I was like, what? I was like, did he just Bill Cosby pound cake speech us? Is that what just happened? No. That was my original thought, because he's letting them off the hook. He's saying the reason why he gets in front of an entire with Jay-Z's platform and says the reason why we are getting killed the way we are by the police is because we don't know how to act right. And you have to be held accountable for that. You can't say that, and you're in the position that Jay-Z is in.
I just got the word. We ain't got to go home.
Up. All right.
Yeah, the solution, right? 2 minutes.
Doing less than that?
Yeah. Well, again, man, this has been a tremendous conversation. Lots of food for thought. Sorry if I call people names.
We need that, brother.
I guess, there's so many ways to go with this, but in a couple of days, there are going to be a couple of elite athletes on Howard's campus who are going to decide where they want to go to college. What teams do they want to bring to the promised land? Now, at some point in time, there are going to be two young brothers, who are going to decide, well, rather than me, I'm all about black institutions, whether it's me working at the Afro, Johnson Publishing Company, and although I'm working for the Undefeated, there's a fellowship in my name called the Rhoden Fellows, and each year we take 6 African American students from 6 HBCUs, and it's a year-long paid fellowship with the idea of putting them in the pipeline. That's my lane. That's right. There's not hundreds, but it's 6 every year. We're going to put these people in the pipeline. In this business, in your business, I think young African American athletes at some point have got to decide, rather than me giving my stuff to Duke or North Carolina or Michigan, like what Chris and them did, the Fab Five. Chris, that was a revolution. That was a rebellion. That wasn't a revolution. Right. The revolution would be going to Alcorn or Mississippi State or Mississippi. That is like an HBCU. But, so my point is, I guess, we've been kind of all over the place in terms of things.
Yes.
In my lane, at some point, you're going to have a group of young African American athletes, high school kids, who are going to enrich a black institution and enrich a Howard or Morgan or Alabama State, something like that. That's what you. So at some point in time, that's got to change. We've got to enrich our own institutions.
By white supremacy, cancel culture is full of it, because they canceled us. They tried to wipe us out. They disagreed with us, so they tried to put us on a fast train to oblivion. And that, to me, even the language of cancel culture is white supremacist at its core. Because black people have often believed in redemption. Now, we know forgiveness can get out of hand. I ain't trying to go there. You know what I'm talking about. Right? Stroke the long hair of forgiveness in a very serious way. But at the end of the day, what I understand is that black people at our best love and sustain each other with an eye toward justice. And for me, justice is what love sounds like when it speaks in public. The demand for that of Jay-Z, of Colin Kaepernick, of Bill Rhoden, of Etan Thomas, of Michael Dyson, of Marcia Dyson, of Greg Carr, all of us, right? All of us have to adhere to those principles. And so I'm honored to be here today. I hope when my book comes out, you have an open mind, you look at it, you see the stuff I'm trying to get at there, and you can look at the failures of it, the flaws of it, the lacuna, the gaps, the blindnesses, and engage me in an edifying fashion. The beauty of the internet is it democratizes access to people to engage them in serious conversation. The delusion of the internet is people to believe they have instantaneous access and therefore instantaneous knowledge. And those two are not the same. So at the end of the day, I think that what we do here is important. This ain't Instagram, this ain't Twitter, this is digging deep, this is engaging, this is a young brilliant freshman talking about Kwame Nkrumah and oppression. This is serious intellectuals trying to engage. We ain't trying to dismiss each other, we're not trying to hurt each other, we're trying to love and embrace each other. And I embrace you for that, I love you for that, and this is why I love HBCUs.